He built a hotel in the heart of Chicago, with doors that opened onto nothing and staircases that led nowhere at all.
Imagine walking down a dim, narrow corridor. You follow a sharp turn, expecting to find a door, a window, or another hall. Instead, you face a solid brick wall. Down another passage, a set of heavy wooden stairs spirals upward. If you climb them, the ascent simply ends, depositing you into total pitch-black darkness. In one of the bedrooms, a heavy door swings shut. The deadbolt sits exclusively on the hallway side, keeping whoever is inside trapped. Every architectural impossibility in this hotel was a deliberate choice, calculated by H. Holmes for his 1890s Chicago operation. The man who commissioned this space was Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H. Holmes. He was a sharply dressed, charismatic pharmacist who arrived in the city just as it was booming ahead of the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Holmes leveraged his considerable charm to fund an ambitious undertaking, a sprawling 3-story structure that entirely dominated its surrounding block. During construction, he constantly fired and replaced his contractors. The turnover was so rapid that a carpenter might frame a single windowless room and be dismissed before the plumbing was ever laid. No single worker ever saw the full blueprint. Through this strict compartmentalization, Holmes ensured he was the only living person who actually understood how all the walls, dead ends, and locked rooms fit together. While the ground floor hosted mundane storefronts and a pharmacy, the second floor was a labyrinth of repeating doors and disorienting corridors, built strictly for containment. Many of the sleeping quarters here were soundproofed, the walls were thick, and the doors were fitted with heavy airtight seals, ensuring that not a single sound could bleed into the public hallways. The gas lines in these rooms were rerouted from the common areas to a central control valve in Holmes's private office. Because these particular rooms were completely windowless, the occupants were plunged into absolute darkness the exact moment the heavy doors clicked shut. The building itself was the murder weapon. All Holmes had to do was sit at his desk, turn a valve, and wait. As thousands flocked to the booming city, Holmes sought out vulnerable boarders and employees. He favored young women who had arrived in Chicago alone, with no local family to check in on them or notice their sudden absence. A guest might check in, unpack her trunks, and simply vanish overnight. Her clothes, jewelry, and personal belongings would be left entirely untouched in her room. Underneath the bedroom rugs, heavy trapdoors were cut directly into the floorboards. These doors opened into greased, vertical chutes hidden between the walls. They were perfectly sized for a body to slide silently from the upper floors, straight down into the dark. These disappearances were the final step in a cycle of fraud. Holmes often secured insurance policies for his tenants before they entered these rooms, allowing him to collect on their lives through the very architecture he built. The secrets of this building were never exposed by a daring escape. Instead, it was Holmes's own greed that betrayed him. An ongoing investigation into a fraudulent life insurance claim began tracking a long trail of missing persons across multiple states, slowly pointing the authorities back to Chicago. When investigators finally bypassed the mundane storefronts and forced their way into the hotel, the public facade shattered. They tried to map the second floor, tearing into walls to understand the blind hallways, the airtight rooms, and the dead ends. With every floorboard they lifted, the terrifying scale of the trap became clear. The charming hotel was a fiction. Beneath the plaster and wood, they had uncovered a meticulously engineered architectural slaughterhouse. When police followed the physical path of those wall chutes to their final destination, they found themselves in a windowless, isolated basement. It was a space fully equipped for chemical disposal and dissection. Holmes was eventually apprehended, brought to trial, and executed in 1896. Before he died, he confessed to dozens of murders. His execution provided no real closure. Holmes was a pathological liar to the very end, constantly changing his story, retracting numbers, and deliberately obscuring the truth. To this day, historians and investigators cannot verify the actual number of people who walked into that building and never walked out. The hotel itself was eventually destroyed, but the final tally of its victims went up in smoke with it. We are left to wonder how many more lives were quietly swallowed by the dark, forever unrecorded and unremembered.